What's going on, guys? It's New York Prepper here, and I have a very important video. I want to just talk about the importance of carrying your weapons when you're around your house, when you're at home, especially now with the virus and everything that's going on. Um, it's important to have your weapons ready when you need them, okay? So, this is just going to be a very quick video, and I really just want to stress the importance of making sure that whatever weapon you have, whether it's a firearm, whether it's a knife, whether it's a hammer, a baseball bat, bear spray, whatever your weapons are, make sure that you have make sure that they're readily accessible, and also try to carry them as much as you can when you're at home. All right, whether you live in a house or an apartment or whatever your living arrangement is, um, make sure that your weapons are readily accessible. Okay, it doesn't do you any good if your weapons are locked away in a safe and unloaded, and the ammunition is difficult to access quickly. All right, if you do have your weapons locked up, which is always a good thing. I lock up my weapons sometimes. Make sure that you can easily access them. Okay, and however your arrangement is, as far as um, how you live and who lives with you. If you have kids and things like that, you obviously have to handle things differently. But regardless of whether you have kids or not, there's always a way to um, have your weapons readily accessible. It doesn't mean that you have to wear your pistol everywhere you go when you're at your house. All right, if you're in the bathroom or taking a shower, you don't have to bring your pistol with you. If you're eating dinner, I'm not saying that you should wear your pistol while you're eating dinner, or have your AR-15 or your shotguns right there on the table. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is be ready to use force if you have to, and make sure your tools and your weapons are readily accessible. All right, especially now with the virus and everything that's going on. You definitely want to have your weapons readily accessible and your defensive tools readily accessible. All right, ideally, if you can carry them, that's great, but it's not realistic to carry your weapons all the time throughout your house, especially if you have kids. That's difficult to do, but you should always have them within reach. They should be easily accessible and easy to get to. So, and also, like, if you're doing something on different floors of your house, make sure that you have a weapon or a defensive tool with you when you're on that different floor. So, for example, I like to do a lot of gunsmithing, and I usually do my gunsmithing in the basement. And typically, I keep my firearms upstairs inside the house. I don't keep any firearms in my basement. So what I do is, when I'm downstairs in the basement working on my guns, or it may not even just be gunsmithing, I may be working out, I may be, fixing something else, I always keep my weapons nearby. Okay, does it mean that I'm wearing my pistol while I'm, mounting a scope? No, of course not. That's, we're not that far into SHTF where you need to do that. But crime has been on the rise, okay? And I'm going to talk about that in a second. The crime has been going up in my area and all around the country. There's been videos of looting starting to happen already. If you go on YouTube, you can already see videos of looting going on in various stores over the last couple of days. But I'll get into that in a second. What I really want to emphasize, though, is, with everything going on with the virus, and, the crime rates going up, make sure your weapons are ready to go. Make sure that they're easily accessible. Make sure that you have whatever peripheral equipment that you need also ready. I'm going to do a video on peripheral equipment for home defense, and some of that peripheral equipment would be a flashlight, bear spray, knives, any other kind of striking tools, uh, flex cuffs. Okay. Um, Another thing too is your cell phone. If you need to call 911, let's say there's a home intruder, you want to make sure you have your cell phone nearby, because crime happens very quickly. So you may have to call 911, and the criminal's not going to wait for you to go and get your equipment, all right, to enter the fight. You have to be ready at all times. And your cell phone is an important aspect of that. If you have to call the police, to report the incident, you need to have your cell phone ready. So that's another thing. But make sure you have your peripheral equipment. Make sure you have your weapons ready. When I say your weapons are ready, that means that they're sighted in. You've practiced with them. You have appropriate ammunition for your location, and you really thoroughly understand the uh, the ramifications of using a weapon, as far as over penetration and tailoring the ammunition so you don't over penetrate. That's very important. Another thing too is know your self defense laws. All right, every state is different, and we're not that far down into SHTF where the laws don't matter anymore. So the last thing you want to do is get arrested for defending your family, or defending your home, or trying to protect someone. So know your self-defense laws, know your deadly force laws, especially if you're going to use a firearm for self-defense. Make sure you really know the deadly force laws in your state. And I'm getting bit by mosquitoes here. Um, Deadly force laws, self-defense laws, study them. Okay, here in my state of New York, I know my laws, and I know what I'm allowed to do and what I'm not allowed to do. So I'm good with that. But you need to go and research your state, and you need to understand deadly force. What does the law say about using deadly force in your state? And also, you need to know about just general self-defense laws. All right, are you allowed to detain somebody? Are you allowed to uh, use force to protect your property? Okay, are you allowed to use force to stop a burglary? And what types of force are you allowed to use? All right, and in what situations? So you need to study that and become very proficient with that. Okay, before you think about anything else that I talked about in this video, you need to really be proficient with self-defense laws and deadly force laws. Okay. um, but you want to have your weapons ready. Okay, so if you have a firearm, like I said, make sure it's sighted in. Make sure you have the right ammo for it. Be aware of your surroundings so you don't over penetrate. If you live in an apartment complex, you're really limited to what kind of weapons you can use to defend yourself. You definitely want to use a fire. If you're going to use a firearm in a built-up area, you definitely want something that expands very easily. I recommend the gold dot, the spear gold dot, hollow point. All right, that's what I recommend, and that's actually what I carry when I'm in an urban area. That's my urban carry ammunition. It's actually used by police officers because of the fact that it doesn't over penetrate. Okay. If you're in a rural area like me, you can use other types of ammo. You can use more ammo that penetrates better, which may be better actually, and it gives you a tactical advantage to have more controlled expansion and harder bullets that aren't going to open up too easily and fragment. All right. Um, so be aware of that. Make sure your gun is operable. And if you have any other peripheral equipment, make sure that that's all working. Your flashlight, make sure your battery is charged on it. Make sure it's working. Any other stuff that I talked about, your bear spray, make sure if you have your bear spray that you know how to use it. Ideally, buy yourself a separate can so you can practice with the other cans so you know pretty much what the distance is of the bear spray and how far it's going to go, and how it feels, and how long the spray is. Okay. If you're going to use any other defensive tools, just make sure you're familiar with them. Make sure they're ready to go and ready to use. All right. If you have a gun that you just bought and you didn't shoot it yet and it's not sighted in, that's not a gun that you're going to be able to use in a home defense situation, because you don't know the point of impact relative to the point of aim. I mean, you really have no clue about how the weapon shoots. So until you can get out to the range and practice with it and make sure it's sighted in, then that weapon is pretty much useless. So think of other alternatives. All right, you don't always need to have a firearm. All right, bear spray, knives are good. Hammers, hatchets, things like that. There's other weapons that you can use to defend yourself. And also think about less than lethal options. All right, everybody thinks that home defense has to be lethal, but in many cases, a lot of these guys that break into homes are doing it mostly to steal something. They're not looking to kill anybody or rape anybody. Sometimes they are. It really depends on your location and where you live, and what the crime is like in your area. But in many situations, you may not have to use lethal force. So be ready to use non-lethal force. That's where the bear spray comes in. That's where having flex cuffs is handy, because you can detain somebody, all right, and wait for the cops to get there to take them away. Um, but the most important thing of this video that I want to really emphasize is make sure your weapons are easily accessible, okay? Because we don't know what's going to happen with this virus and how things are going to play out. Things can really deteriorate. And I said I was going to talk about crime in my area, so I'm going to talk about that now. Um, the crime rate has really gone up in my area. I've been listening to my local sheriff's office on my ham radio and the 911 dispatch, and I've really heard a lot of domestic violence, a lot of burglaries, a lot of suspicious people hanging out outside of residences and things like that, a lot of welfare checks, a lot of drunk drivers in the middle of the day. All right, I actually had someone almost hit me when I was going to visit a relative, and I parked my vehicle at their apartment complex, and a person was driving. They were intoxicated with drugs in their system, and they almost hit me with their car. They were going like 35 miles an hour. They missed me by 1 foot, and they smashed into 5 cars right next to me. I could have easily lost my life. All right, and I blame that on the virus, guys. I blame it on the virus, because there's a lot of people out there. Either they're either mentally ill, or they're sane, but they're just criminals, and when things are normal, these people are always on the brink. Okay, they're on the brink of doing something crazy or doing something bad. And once we have a disaster like we have now, that really pushes them over the edge. Okay, there's also a lot of emotional problems that people have that could lead them to do bad things, that could lead them to want to steal, or desperation. Okay, so you need to be ready, guys. You need to be ready. And your weapons are pretty much useless if you can't use them when you need them to. Okay, criminals are not going to wait for you to get your weapon, to load it, and to engage them. Okay, they're not going to wait for you. You have to be ready at all times. Okay, and that goes also into awareness. And I did a video on the color codes of awareness. If you don't know what that is, check my video out. The color codes of awareness were invented by Jeff Cooper, who also invented the scout rifle. And basically, the color codes of awareness is just the principle that there's 4 levels of awareness. There's white, yellow, orange, and red. And you really want to be at a yellow level as much as possible, which means that you're alert to your surroundings. You're not over alert. You're not, scanning constantly. You're not going crazy, but you're alert to your surroundings, and you're aware of what's going on around you. Okay, so that's really important. You really have to be aware of your surroundings. That's critical. It doesn't matter if you have weapons or you have defensive tools, but you're not alert. Okay, you don't know what's going on around you, so it doesn't matter that you have those weapons. All right, so have your weapons ready. Make sure they're operable. uh, make sure your weapons are easily accessible, your defensive tools. Okay, so you can easily access them and deploy them. Okay, that's essential. So, like I said, if you're in your basement working out, like in my situation, if I'm in my basement and I'm working out for a couple hours, or I'm live streaming, or I'm, in a different part of my home where I don't have my weapons, um, I want to make sure I have those weapons nearby, because if I'm downstairs and somebody breaks in while I'm downstairs and I have to run upstairs, get my weapons and deploy them, it's not going to help me. Okay, it's going to be useless. All right, so if you're working around your house, make sure your weapons are close by. If you're out on your property and you're working on your property, make sure that your weapons are close, also, because you never know what could happen when you're outside of your house also. And there's a lot of robberies that happen during the day, and there's a lot of crimes that happen in the middle of the day. It doesn't always happen at night. So have your weapons ready, make sure they're operable, have them close by. All right, make sure they're accessible to you, keep them close to you. All right, you don't have to wear it 24/7, but have them somewhere close by where you can reach them easily. Make sure you're at a yellow level of alertness, so even when you're at home, you're not totally drowning out your surroundings by, um, watching TV or something like that. So even if you're watching TV, periodically pause and listen to your surroundings to see what's around you. All right. So, that's pretty much it. I just wanted to do this video, and I'll do a lot more home defense videos for you guys. So take care, God bless, and don't forget the 3 P's: prepare, practice, and persevere.